Welcome to a special edition of Into the Abyss. Tonight we're going to be doing a question and answer session. Blue Gilliand, the site editor of Cemetery Dance Online, has been gracious enough to prepare some questions for us so that we can share what it is we do here at Into the Abyss with Cemetery Dance readers, and so you can get to know us a little bit better and see if maybe our channel is something you'd like to check out. So Thomas McDonough has got our questions for us, so he's going to read them off, and then we're all going to answer to the best of our ability.
Thank you. First, we just want to introduce ourselves, tell us a little bit about ourselves. I think the man who runs this whole thing should go first.
I don't know about run the whole thing, but my name's Kevin Lucia. Those of you guys that are not strangers to the site, you know I'm the review editor here at Cemetery Dance. I have a book coming out soon through Cemetery Dance called Mystery Road. I'm a writer. It's all there on Amazon. You can go find it.
I'm C.W. Breyer. I'm an author as well. I write dark fantasy and horror. I've known Kevin now for a few years, and we kind of just fell into this whole thing, and I think we'll get into that.
I'm Thomas McDonough. I'm not a writer. However, I am a teacher with Kevin at St. Catholic Central High School in Binghamton, New York. And whenever Kevin does have a new book out, I have to buy one. Even the first one had to be special ordered and then spent too much, and he even put that in when he signed it for me. Thank you, Kevin.
Yeah, you're welcome.
All right. So, how do we know each other? How do you guys know each other? I think Kevin and Chuck, you should go first.
Well, the funny thing about that, and this is going to sound terrible and is going to paint me like a prima donna, is I first met Chuck years and years ago. But
I was wondering if you actually remember this.
Because
I had the author crush on you before you even knew who I was.
Years and years ago, the church that we were both attending at the time had a special artist symposium. And I had a reading of one of my very first short stories, which was published in the Midnight Diner. It was an anthology of speculative stories that centered around grappling with faith. I won't call it Christian fiction, but all the stories in there were horror or genre stories that grappled with the meaning of belief and things like that. And Chuck was at that signing, and I remember him asking me some questions. And then he popped up shortly thereafter, a couple of years ago, at one of my local book signings for my second Clifton Heights books, Devourer of Souls. And I think somewhere along the line after that, he approached me on Facebook. We became Facebook friends. And then probably 3 years ago, a lot of local writers here in the area decided to start banding together and going to conventions together. And Chuck and I, it was the most natural, for us to start hanging out. And that's when I did this show. It was actually Chuck who brought this idea to me first.
Yep. And the original meeting, which is kind of cool that the church actually let people have whatever genre they wanted.
It was a very creatively minded church, absolutely. Yeah,
there's a lot of freedom in terms of what people wanted to write and read.
Yeah.
But yeah, I very much enjoyed your original reading, and so I've been reading your work since. And now as for this, we kind of came together. It was kind of an idea we pitched. I mean, we go to conventions and things like that and conferences, and while we're selling books, or actually I should say between selling books, there's a lot of downtime where we just kind of chat horror, chat writing.
Yep,
and
absolutely.
I think that was one of the biggest things that led to this, because we're essentially taking those conversations we're having at conferences, and it works its way into the conversations we're having here.
Yeah.
I think another thing is, originally we were working with someone else. Ted was helping us on this. He had an idea of going onto YouTube. That's where it kind of went. Things have kind of changed in the format and everything, but that's where the idea all came from. And here we are.
Yeah.
And then, Tom, I met you because of this.
And we started drinking, and we got to know each other. And
Tom and I have been teaching together for how many years?
This will be our 13th year.
Yeah.
And it's kind of funny because... Well, actually, it's funny because the first I didn't meet you, but I subbed for you when you were working at that middle school, St. John's. And someone had a picture of himself on his desk dressed up like Luke Skywalker. And then when I found out later we're going to be working together, my first thought is, he can't handle this job. He's going to get fired. That's what he thought. Go ahead, tell him.
Yeah, well, there may or may not have been a Star Wars movie that I filmed with my junior high students, and I may or may not have dressed up as a Jedi.
You did!
But, yeah, he thought I wouldn't be able to handle it at the high school level. I was a little concerned that Tom wouldn't last very long. Because of his method of addressing dress code was a little bit too direct.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, but yeah, as Tom and I's relationship grew over the years, it became very apparent. I realized what a big Stephen King fan he was and how much he loved horror. So when we were looking to develop this program, he was a natural choice, and I think he brings a little bit of credibility to the program too. Because CW and I have a very thinly veiled. Oh, well, we're writers. By the way, we write. By the way, we have a book. Buy it. Whereas Tom,
Which,
just,
by the way, you should buy our book.
well, exactly. You should buy his books. You should buy my books. But Tom is just here because he loves horror. He loves talking about horror, and he doesn't like drinking. So
Yes.
responsibly, of course.
And not to mention, Kevin and I have learned some ways of making money over the years, from having garage sales to selling our own plasma.
That's right. Yeah.
All right.
Let's
So
move on to the next
while
question.
we move on, before God knows we get in trouble for this one, how did you end up doing the show together?
So we, like I said, Chuck actually brought the idea to me first. He brought it to me over the summer. I had ideas about YouTube, doing something on YouTube. I just didn't know what. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I just knew that I wanted to do something on YouTube. I felt like it was a venue that wasn't tapped. I hadn't really tried. Then Chuck came to me and he approached me with the idea of doing a horror-centric YouTube channel. I thought that sounds like a great idea.
Yep.
And Kevin asked what I wanted to do. I said, okay.
Yeah.
Well, do I come over and watch horror movies and drink?
Drink and eat and have great food, and I'll make you food. Yeah, there you go.
Yep, that's basically it.
All right. How did the show evolve from the early days? We did not evolve. Come on. Okay.
No.
I'm wearing contacts now because I didn't have them last time. I mean, Joe, you were there for that one. I had glasses.
I have Joe off camera.
Good
Joe's
buddy
here.
Joe Sullivan's here, and he was here for that.
Initially Chuck brought this to me, and he had a friend of his, an associate who is a professional YouTube channel producer. He had several freelance clients, and he was originally going to produce the show for us. And
schedules just didn't work out.
Yeah, he was the one that sparked the flame, but unfortunately what we found out is the truism of being a freelance. As a freelancer, you could say, I never have to go into work. But the downside to that is you can never escape work because it's always at home with you. So I had the video editing background. That's why I was dressed up like a Jedi. And I had the video editing background. I had the time because I don't have any competing interests. So initially, we moved on from Ted being our producer to passing over control of the show to me.
I would say we're still in the early days. I think we're still figuring out, feeling out what we want to do for the show. Which if people have recommendations for us and want to comment on videos or on Facebook, let us know. If you guys have suggestions for what to watch or what kind of format to do, we're all ears.
Yeah, just so you know, the camera adds 100 pounds.
All right. So
all right.
Next question.
If you had to pick one episode that you wanted to show people, give them the best idea what you're trying to do with Into the Abyss,
the blooper reel.
Which one would it be? Now, that, not a bad one.
Oh, brother.
I hate these questions because you're asking us, it's like saying your favorite movie, your favorite
It's like asking an
TV
author,
show.
What's your favorite book that you wrote?
Yeah, your favorite child. I mean, things like that.
I would have to say that...
whichever one will make the most money someday.
Well, yeah.
Nice, I like that.
I don't know if I can pick that. I think what we're trying to do is we're trying to have... Actually, I'll be honest with you. Even though they probably aren't ranking in the highest views, but we have had several random discussions in the course of like we come in with a pattern of we're going to talk about this, we're going to talk about this, we're going to talk about this, but then things will just go off in a tangent. Where one time we had a very interesting discussion about self-publishing in horror. Then one time we had an illuminating discussion about Jack Chick and his religious tracks. Those don't necessarily get a lot of views, but what that is, the camera is capturing these off the cuff, let's just talk about horror, because at the end of the day, I don't know if we're saying anything really intelligent or insightful.
No, definitely not.
We're saying it for the people.
We're a bunch of people who are commiserating over how much we love weird stuff, and we're eating and drinking and having a good time.
I would say the way we film makes it difficult to say what our favorite episodes are.
Yeah.
Just because what we do is, for the most part, we're getting together like once a month, recording a whole bunch
Filming
of content.
3 hours of footage.
Yep, and then just spreading over a month. So in reality, we've only filmed a few times, but it's been a lot of content for those couple of times we got together. But if I had to narrow it down to one, it's any of the late recordings when Kevin is really drunk.
Well, as the night
we're getting
goes
there.
on, and yeah. So, next question, please.
Well, do I get a chance to answer,
you
or
do.
is it just
you
you
do.
two?
You do. Go ahead.
Prima
Sorry.
donnas.
Sorry.
All right. Well, you know what? As I said, I hate these questions because I got plenty, but I'm going to actually narrow it down to two.
Okay.
One being when Chuck and I and Kevin were asked about movies we recommended. I remember you did Train to Busan.
Mm-hmm.
I did Tremors, and that was really good because it provides some nostalgia. It also provides a little insight to some other movies. Also, and this is more for you guys than for me, but when we did the horror novel recommendations,
Okay. Yeah.
that was pretty good. And when I actually look at it, because I enjoy watching it, because Chuck is like, "Are you gonna spoil a novel from the 1800s?" I really like it. We're trying to get people to get more open out there instead of just going with generic stuff.
Right.
All right. So next question, Kevin.
Okay.
Tell us a little bit about the horror cave, because it
the
turns
horror
out
cave.
Blue here is a little jealous of how you put this thing together. And Blue, we're going to try to keep it short, because if I had actually calculated the amount of hours he told me about this place. Yeah.
So, ironically enough, the Horror Cave's genesis happened simultaneously with the YouTube channel. I had this space that I wanted to develop, and I had a group of horror writers, Chuck being one of them, that we had hung out together at cons for years, but we had not actually spent social time together. I'm like, we need a place to hang out. And then around the same time, Chuck was like, well, I have this idea about a YouTube channel, and I thought to myself, this would be a great place to film. It'd be a great place to film. It'd be a great place to have people over and hang out. So it was kind of snowballed from there. It came from the desire to really spend time with my fellow writing people off the clock.
And Tom.
Yeah. I should rephrase
Horror
that.
people.
Horror people.
There we go.
Off the clock. But then it was just a happy accident that right around the same time I wanted to make the Horror Cave, that Chuck's like, well, I'm thinking about doing a YouTube channel. And it just kind of became the perfect storm.
I mean, I'm also going to say, Kevin has been very proud of everything he's been working on. And this place is it is very conducive to it. It is a lot of, I once thought it's like TGI Fridays threw up in here, but with horror stuff. But
maybe Spirit yes, Halloween threw up in here.
Okay, that's a good one.
Spirit Halloween threw up in my room.
And it's not like, if you've seen pictures of it, this is not like one zone. It is 360 degrees.
Oh, yes. I mean, as I said, Kevin's very proud of this place. And actually, it goes into our next question. Kevin, what is your favorite thing in the Horror Cave? Could be a book, piece of memorabilia. They go even further. One thing you'd save if the cave caught on fire. Now, personally, I thought it'd be your family. But I guess we're just looking at the cave.
Well, actually, to be honest, I've been racking my brains, and I'm afraid I'm going to have to give a cop-out answer. And the cop-out answer is, I don't think there'd be anything I could take, because really the most important thing in this room are all the books, obviously. It's also not only my horror memorabilia and my cool stuff, it's got all my books and things like that. So I don't think if this place caught on fire, there'd be no way I could take all these books, So that's kind of a cop-out answer, but really the most important part of this room is all the great stories that I have in here.
Well, actually, this next question continues with the Horror Cave. Thomas, CW, look around. If you could take one thing out of Kevin's Horror Cave home to your own Horror Cave, what would it be? Chuck?
Well, I'm an author, so I would have to say, honestly, the books. Just because then I can get them for free. No, Kevin's got a huge library of horror books here by a lot of authors that I very much enjoy. Honestly, I could grab a book off any shelf and find something good to read. So that'd probably be the first thing I would go for, just because I want to read the books.
Kevin. That's who I take home with me.
Well, I'm touched.
I'm just going to put you
right up
in my living room.
The bromance is alive and well.
All right, if he's not on it, I would have to say I like the very unusual decorations. Probably not the deer head, which I'm sure is going to be shown soon.
Yeah,
I love the skull glasses that we have here.
I like the horseshoe crab. Got the giant horse.
That thing creeps me out.
I
I'm
like
sorry, guys, but you know what? I'm gonna say the skull glasses, but you know, this is all Kevin's world. Okay, if I had my own horror cave, it'd have to be my stuff.
That's right. That's really. It's not even just a
It's
horror.
got some sweet Star Wars stuff up there as well. So.
It's actually there's snapshots of my life here. I mean, there's stuff from playing high school basketball. There's family photos. I mean,
Very
really,
skinny basketball jersey too.
well, I wore that when I was in 8th grade. So
That was you in 8th grade?
It was.
Oh my God,
There's a picture.
Gargantua.
Holy crap.
All right. Anyway,
All right, now, what are some podcasts or YouTube channels that you listen to, you watch, that inspire your work on the show?
I know for me, I've said his name numerous times, and he's probably going to be concerned that I'm starting to develop a fixation with him. But
Developing or developed?
To develop to fix, yeah, I've already developed. Peter Law's YouTube channel. He's an author in England, and he's an ordained Baptist minister who also writes horror and thrillers, which I love. And I love his channel because his channel is the epitome of a guy who's just making videos about stuff he loves. I mean, he's got some traction now. He's got a lot of followers, and he gets a lot of views and comments. But really, he doesn't have an angle for stuff that he thinks is trending. He just really covers stuff that he loves. And that for me, I can't predict how many followers or views we're going to get over the next couple of years. But for me, that seems to be the guiding light for us, is just do what you're really passionate about, and people will end up following along. Chuck, what about you?
I've got a few. I'll go back to the origins. I fell in love with like old school monster movies and things like that. And growing up watching Mystery Science Theater 3000. So I'll add that to the list of Mystery Science Theater 3000, Riff Tracks. That's what the guys are working on now, some of them. Just spoofing old horror and sci-fi movies. I love that. Bringing in a little bit of humor with it. I've really taken to a video cast on YouTube lately called In Praise of Shadows. I love it. The person who runs it goes into deep history of different horror movies and different horror movie genres, breaks it down. He actually does some book ones as well. And his research is impeccable. Like he goes into all the obscure movies and shows the trends that are there. I haven't watched a ton of videos from him yet, but they're fantastic. I'll mention, let's see, I have a list over here. Brian Keene's audiocast. Brian Keene is very good.
The horror show.
Yep,
Yeah.
the horror show is
I've been on the horror show. It's a
Yep.
good time. It's a good time. It really
There's a lot of
is.
insightful stuff there. Lore in any sort of form, whether it's the book, whether it's the the audio podcast, whether it's the episodes that are on, I think it's on Amazon.
Mm-hmm.
Those are fantastic. I love history, so I love seeing where the origins of horror came from. And one other one I'll mention is this No Sleep podcast. If I'm just looking for a quick, scary story, the No Sleep podcast is very good.
What about you, Tom?
Oh, I have a few. I mean, in terms of movie reviews, Dead Meat with James A. Janice. He's very good, very, very active, and covers a lot of good material. And they do a few, like they have podcasts, reviews, kill counts as well. Decker's Shadow, Good Bad Flicks, Found Flicks. Also, I mean, now I like those because one thing I always want to bring is maybe a little humor, a little wry feeling, because after a while you can get a little too deep in it and you have to remind people, hey, let's have some fun with it. But also, there's one thing I wanted to bring up, because if you're looking for me for real horror, it would have to be Mr. Nightmare, if you've ever heard it. It's scary stories to tell, and it really, really lets you use your imagination to go wild. Hopefully we can have that too.
All right.
All right, now, if you could invite one guest from the horror industry to appear in person on the show, who would it be and why?
For me, I'm going to go and say my first reaction will be Bob Ford. But Bob Ford's going to be on our show in March 21st.
Segue.
It's nice to butter him up.
We've already got that covered. To be honest, I'd have to say Brian Keene. And the reason why that is Brian knows the most there is to know about the industry. He's been there. He's done that. And Brian also, I don't know if Brian even watched this video, but Brian and I have a long-standing like a rain date about to hang out and just drink whiskey, and talk theology and philosophy. That's the rain check that we have. Well, I was going to go do that a couple years ago, and the weather turned out to be really bad, and I couldn't go down and do that. But we kind of have that rain check where Brian and I are just going to sit there and talk about theology and mythology and philosophy all night long, and drink good whiskey while we're doing it. So if I had to pick one person from the horror industry, it'd be Brian Keane. What about you, Chuck?
Well, for the sake of the podcast,
I almost know who you're going to say.
Well, actually, I don't know. I mean, Stephen King would be the obvious one, just because there comes the views.
Go big or go home.
Come on, who's the writer you have a man crush on? I know who it is. I know what it is. He would be amazing on this show.
Is it Kevin?
Yes.
No, it's not. It's not.
Well, let's see. I mean, obviously Stephen King is a big draw. I mean, that's the obvious answer. I actually wanted to avoid that one just because it's so obvious.
That's the cliche answer.
That's a cliche answer, but I mean, it's also the honest answer. I mean, people want to see what Stephen King has to say. Honestly, I want to look at. I mean, I'm only a small fish in the pond right now, so there's tons of authors that are great to look up to. A lot of the classic authors I would love to learn from, but in terms of who I'd want to interview, maybe the people who are kind of setting the trends of where things are going in the future. A couple names that come to mind. One's Paul Tremblay.
Okay. Yeah, that's
a
good one.
I think who's the next Stephen King? Maybe not doesn't quite reach that status of just everyone recognizes the name, but who's going to be setting the horror trends for the next decade or two? Okay. And so Paul Tremblay comes to mind. Josh Malerman is
there it is. There, Josh would be amazing. Josh would be amazing on this show.
Bird Box is one of my favorite books.
I think I would be fawning over Josh as much as I would be Brian Keane.
Yeah. And his writing is fantastic. So, but both of those guys are awesome. There's a lot of names I could name just because, again, I'm the small fish. There's tons of big fish I would love to meet and interview. But I see them as people that are going to be setting horror trends for the next decade or two.
Awesome.
As for movies, I know we're supposed to have one name, but two that come to mind just because they've been big lately, and I think they're going to continue to be big and a big influence on horror movies. James Wan, and also Jordan Peele.
Okay. Oh, all right. Now, you're not in the industry, but do you have somebody you'd like to interview?
Maybe I am in the industry.
Maybe you've been writing erotic horror this whole... Are you Chuck Tingle? You're Chuck Tingle, aren't you?
Wish.
He's Chuck Tingle.
All right.
Do you have somebody you'd like to interview?
Well, I mean, just like with Chuck, you like to go big. John Carpenter would be one. As I said, I love early Carpenter. I love the atmosphere. But in the same position, I already mentioned his name, James A. Janice, a horror movie reviewer, and who's kind of like on the same wavelength of what we do enjoy. Because not only does he cover the movies, he also points out sometimes when they're good or when they're bad.
Right.
All right, last one. They would like us to take a few minutes, let us know what projects that we may have been working on. So, Kevin, go ahead.
Well, again, as I said, my most recent book, Mystery Road, is currently on pre-order for Cemetery Dance. So it's a novella. It's pretty much a love letter to the Twilight Zone. It's one of my most favorite things I've ever written. Right now, I'm kind of in a quiet place. Not the movie, Quiet Place. But I have two novels that are out with beta readers right now. One, they couldn't be further apart. One is a weird Western involving Billy the Kid, flesh-eating zombies, King Solomon, and the Ark of the Covenant. The other one is a ghost story, kind of a straight-up ghost story with some Lovecraftian angles. And right now I'm trying to work on a story where I just totally obliterate an entire town. That's my only goal. I just want to destroy this entire town. Go ahead, Chuck.
I've got a few irons in the fire. The big one right now, I'm getting close to having the first draft done. It's a gothic horror comedy mystery. And I get a lot of weird looks with that. But really, just think of Sherlock Holmes with...
Gideon?
Yep, Gideon and Rose. Yep, Sherlock Holmes with monsters and a sense of humor.
And a drinking problem, I believe.
Yes, and a drinking problem.
Well, like us. Anyway, continue.
Sherlock Holmes had a cocaine problem, man.
Yeah, that's true. It's true.
But if you've read my short story collection, Gideon and Rose, there's a novella that's in there. The plan has been for a long time to turn that into a novel series. And so I'm developing that with those characters. I've got a few other ones that are a little bit further out. But that will be my big thing, is finishing that one in the coming months and then shopping it around.
Okay. Do you have any projects, Tom?
Chuck Tingle.
Chuck Tingle. All right.
I have been playing Powerball, but there's one thing I haven't said to anyone. I've kept this to myself. I was really thinking about this over the years, about writing a book about my teaching experience that hopefully other teachers can relate to and get some humor into it and some reality
It could
because
be considered horror as well.
good point. But I'm not saying it's definitely going to happen. These two are the professional writers, and I'm just hoping by a fluke I will get a huge multi-million-dollar book sale
There you go.
and all that.
Okay.
So, Cemetery Dance, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
Blue Gilliand, for having us online. And I hope that you guys will come check out our videos and subscribe.
Into the Abyss.
Into the Abyss.
To the best.
All right.
Cheers.